Hey, Design Her Travel Tribe. Quick note before we get started with today's episode. Design Her Travel is launching a new group trip soon, and the waitlist is now open. If you would like to travel the world with me and other amazing individuals in a small group setting, then this trip is for you. More details will be coming soon, but for now, hop on the waitlist. You will be the first to know when the doors open. Just head over to the show notes, click on the link that says waitlist, and I'll see you there.
It's okay to date just to date. It's okay to not be looking for a partner. It's okay to be open to experiences that are non-traditional and outside of norm that's been created. And that there is something in that. And there's something kind of empowering and emboldening and just really claiming who you are and what you want. And that there are other people who want that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Design Her Travel podcast. I'm your host, Kim Anderson. As an avid traveler, global nomad, and someone who considers themselves a citizen of the world, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. My hope in creating this podcast is to inspire you to take the leap of faith and to design the life of your dreams. For me, that includes connecting with like-minded individuals and creating a community of souls living their best lives out, in, and around the world. Each week, you'll hear stories and conversations from fellow travelers who have figured out how to incorporate travel as a key component in their daily lives. Their stories are beautiful and inspiring, just like you. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. So let's do this. Here we go. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to today's episode of the Design Her Travel podcast. I'm your host, Kim Anderson. I can't wait for you to hear today's episode. It is such a fun conversation, and it's one that we have not had here at Design Her Travel. And so today's guest is Hillary Dowdle. Hillary is a hysterical presence online. She is known on Instagram as Queen of the Exit Row. But what we are talking about today is Hillary's other project. She is the creator of the blog International Tinderella. And so, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking all things dating abroad today. We are going to talk about dating mishaps, how-tos, what you need to know. And it's all through the eyes of a woman who has dated for the last 3 years while being a digital nomad. And so get ready, buckle up. This conversation is an absolute blast. So without further ado, Hillary Dowdle. Well, hello, Hillary. I am so excited to have this conversation today. I think it's a topic that's going to be super fun to talk about. And so welcome to Design Her Travel. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this chat today.
Me too. We have not spoken about dating on the show at all. And so I think this is going to be a lot of fun. But where are you coming to us from today? Where are you in the world?
So I'm actually, of all the places to be from today, I am actually in Maplewood, New Jersey. So just about 35 minutes outside of New York, for those unfamiliar with Maplewood. I'm on a bit of a stopover before I'm heading to Latin America for a couple months.
And so researching before the show, looking at all of your information, you're self-professed, 40 and feral, and the International Tinderella. So we need a little backstory with that. Like, how did you get to that point? And I know that could be like a very long and detailed question, but how did you get to being International Tinderella?
So very much on accident, so kind of how the entire past few years have unfolded in a very just kind of unplanned, unintentional way. I went through a kind of a messy breakup, if we want to call it that, kind of an end of a very, very long, drawn out situationship at times, relationship at other times, that just really ended in a blaze of glory and aligned with some long-term travel. I went to Europe for 3 months and really had zero intention of dating, of meeting anyone. The last thing I wanted to do was open Tinder abroad. I was, again, just getting out of something that had long expired and just was, kind of off of dating. And then I was in Lisbon for 3 whole days and decided why not? And opened up Bumble. And of course, I matched with a New Yorker, which I had just escaped and figured, why not? And I think there really was something to this zero pressure, zero expectation, just kind of style of meeting someone. He was actually leaving the next day. So there was no need to put on airs. There was no need to kind of bring my representative. It was just 100% authentic. We met at some like divey bar, had just such a great time. We closed the bar. It was still kind of COVID times. We ended up like locked into the bar with the lights out while the police went by. So it was just this totally random evening that just ended up being so much fun. And I think it just opened my eyes to just this no pressure dating and this no pressure style of meeting people and just really showing up 100% authentically because why not? There was no need to be someone I wasn't because quite frankly, I wasn't looking to marry anybody or really to have anything lasting or long term. And I think that really showed me that dating can be fun. I've never been someone who wants to get married. I've never been someone who really strives for like a long-term relationship. I've always been open to one, but I think I just really embraced that. And traveling so much has, I think in a way gave an excuse for that to be okay. And then I stopped needing the excuse and said, this is just what I want. And I had fun with it. I've had more fun dating in the past 3 years that I've been traveling than I had in the previous 20 years of dating. And that just, I think, is how things just kept going and just really became enjoyable.
What I love about the way that you were able to just date without any pressure, I think, you're really onto something because I know even for me, like dating sometimes can feel like you're dating with an end goal. And when you're not in the same place and when you give yourself the freedom to just have the date in the moment, I think especially as women, we kind of do date with an end goal a lot of the times where men can just date. So I love that actually you're truly dating now. Like it's not no pressure, just let's have fun, let's hang out with someone else. And so I love that it removed that pressure for you. I think that's brilliant. And so let's talk about the apps because you talked about Bumble. Are you finding more success with one or the other? Like if somebody were wanting to start dating abroad, like what do you recommend?
So for me, for being honest and authentic, I have always preferred Bumble because there's a height requirement. You have to put your height on Bumble. I am 6'1". So, I'm not 5'2" looking for a 6'7" partner. I just want someone within a range. You could be a little shorter, a little taller, but I'm just not comfortable typically with someone who is considerably shorter than I am. I'll be being honest here. That's why I've always preferred Bumble because there is a required height. But I found that Bumble sometimes tends to be a bit slower with actually connecting with someone. There seems to be a slower response time. So if I'm somewhere for a shorter period of time, I tend to use Tinder a bit more because it just seems to be more quick. Because also sometimes with Bumble, for those not familiar, in order to connect, I think it still is the woman has to reach out first. And so sometimes, honestly, I also just get caught up and I'll let things expire. So I do like that Tinder allows the two-way street. And I've had great luck with both. And quite frankly, you tend to see the same people on both. So I think it's really just a matter of preference. If somebody likes a different platform or like if a woman is dating and she wants to be the first to reach out, Bumble's a great option. I do like that Tinder does seem to expedite things a bit more. And quite frankly, I think historically, Tinder people were just looking to hook up, etc. And I think that you find a little bit of everything on every app. There are people who authentically want to date. I have found people on Tinder who find out that I'm just passing through and no longer want to meet because they are looking for long term, which is completely fair. So those have been kind of my top two. I know a lot of people also use Hinge, which tends to be, I think, more popular in certain places. 2 apps is more than enough for me to toggle between. So, but I think that's a good option for someone who's kind of looking to explore that more. But for me, my most success has been through Bumble and Tinder.
I have to say, you say that 2 apps are plenty to toggle between because online dating can be extremely time consuming. Like there's a lot of swiping, a lot of reading, a lot of like playing the game. It's a lot. And so when you're really set on dating in a place, Are you spending a lot of time? Are you just sort of when you get the urge? Like how much time are you spending finding dates and places?
I think it really varies. There are times when I frankly just have no interest in dating and I just want to be in a place and enjoy the place that I'm in and either like rest, relax, and just have no interest. And I think that is true of any time and anywhere. Or there's also times that I have met like other solo travelers or other travelers, and that's how I prefer to socialize. So I think it really ebbs and flows. I think it also just, again, we're being honest, depends on the dating pool. There are certain places where I'm just it's not my pool to jump in. And other places, I'm like, let's go. Like, let's swim through the ocean of options. So I think that honestly, that makes a difference. I think it's a kind of this like just mix of my mood, kind of if I'm really up for socializing. Frankly, this lifestyle can get exhausting. And sometimes I just am a bit more introverted. Other times I like, let's go out every night. And certain places I think are more conducive to going out and socializing and doing things. And other places that I travel to seems to be quieter, calmer. And I always say I can meet someone anywhere because there's always someone. And I've also just broadened kind of who I will date so much more because again, it is so less pressure. So I have opened my parameters to older, younger. Everyone has preferences, and so there's still some criteria, obviously. But I think that I've just become so much more open, and you can literally find someone to date anywhere if you are open minded and really just looking to have a positive experience and meet someone. There's great experiences to be had, kind of no matter what you're looking for or where you are.
And so do you typically date more locals or more travelers? Or like as you said, it's a mix, but which is there one that you tend to date more than others?
I don't think I've ever like given a breakdown. I could backtrack, but I would say off the top of my head, I would say it's probably a pretty even mix of local folks and travelers. I mean, again, frankly, typically everyone, broad statement, but everyone is on the apps and looking to meet people, to date people. So I think it's really been a mix. And I think there's really a lot of value in both. And meeting other travelers, you automatically already have something in common and you know that there's a common interest. Frankly, I initially, my first date was like, oh, this guy lives in New York. Like I just left there. But he was probably one of the best dates that I had with anyone from New York. And I think that because we both were in the same place, mentally, emotionally, physically, outside of New York, we both, I think, were just much more kind of like comfortable, laid back. It was you take the people out of the place and things just change so drastically. So there is definitely, I think, something in meeting other travelers because, again, you do have this like automatic connection with someone in many ways. I've gotten some great recommendations from people that I have who have traveled to other places. It's how I've actually ended up going to many other countries because they were recommended by a date. So I ended up in Croatia and Serbia several other places because a date recommended going there.
I love it. And so let's talk a little bit about cultural etiquette. You know, you're dating people from other countries. Have you come across any situations where you're just like, whoa, there's some serious cultural etiquette I didn't know about?
Yes and no. I think that there's definitely something to one, being really just open and communicating things before meeting someone and setting expectations. I have never been someone who is you need to take me out and wine me and dine me and impress me. And it's just not who I am. And if that is who you are, that's great. But for me, I would prefer to just like take a walk. I would prefer to do something I think low key as a first date. And I have found that that's the norm much of the world, where things just tend to be much more kind of casual and low key. Maybe it's just the expectation I'm setting or the standard I'm setting, but that has been, I think, a lot of what dating looks like other places and also just realizing kind of who expectation for people paying. I never go on a date not prepared to pay for myself. It's always great if someone decides to treat me to something, but I think that just across cultures is something that varies so much that I don't ever want to be in a position where I am expecting something from someone that either is outside of kind of the norm there or that they're not expecting, especially because I'm not looking for long term. You're not courting me. There's no setting a tone, I guess you could say. But as far as like kind of huge cultural norms, I would say that just realizing what dates look like other places has been maybe one of the biggest. I also have, I think one thing, maybe it's being a New Yorker or or what it may be, but I have had so many people offer to pick me up. And I'm like, I'm not getting in a car with you, you could kill me. They are just like, what? Like, I think that I have hesitations that maybe other places don't, just based on kind of an assumed safety, or maybe that's just a norm. That is something that I had to get used to too, I think, was this either meeting very late or getting offering a ride, things like that. I think for women from the US, especially in New York, like you don't get a car with someone you've never met. And I think that me being standoffish about that or alarmed by that was a bit shocking to some of the men that I've dated, because they just are like, well, why wouldn't I just pick you up? I'm like, because I don't want to end up on Dateline.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, because there are parts of the world like New York, you're like definitely would not do that. Whereas I currently live in middle America where it's like people expect to be picked up on a first date. Where my experience is like, I'm not letting someone pick me up on a first date unless I really know them. Like, first time meeting you, I'm like, not a chance. I am meeting in a public spot and texting or calling someone as soon as I get there and saying, hey, I'm with blah, blah, blah. And, so let's talk about some of the safety, because online dating is always, there's always an element of safety, an element of concern. Being a solo female traveling the world, there are concerns. So what are your safety protocols that you have in place when you're meeting someone you've never met before in a foreign country?
So I think this comes up a lot. And I think there's also, coming from the US, especially coming from New York, some people just think that it's absolutely crazy to go on a date with someone abroad, whether you're getting in a car with them or not, or just meeting someone. I think for some people just raises huge alarms. And I would say, again, really frankly, I am pretty, I think, open when it comes to things. My safety precautions probably are not as tight as they should be. I think that I just really try to live where I am, but I always let a friend know that I'm meeting someone new. I always let someone know that I'll be going out. If I never meet like inside, like in someone's home for the first meeting, it's always in a public place. And I don't ever do like a surprise date. Like it's never like I'm going to pick you up and take you somewhere, or we'll meet here and go somewhere. I always need a destination, at least a starting point. That doesn't mean, we're necessarily going to stay there the whole time, but at least a starting point. So I know where I'm going. I have multiple friends that have my location on my phone. Again, what's the friend in New York going to do if I want to date in Turkey? But, I think there is a sense of security to that. There is also just someone knowing you're out. And if you don't follow up a couple hours later or whatever it may be, that at least there's someone knows when you were last, that you were with someone. So I think those are some of the biggest precautions. And if sex does happen, I always carry and use my own condoms. I don't trust someone else to use theirs, to be honest, for multiple reasons. But that is definitely something that is always put into practice. Again, always carrying my own to make sure that's what's being used. And again, there's a lot more safety precautions that could be in place that I could list off. And that, frankly, I probably practiced at first when I was a little more hesitant and kind of new to dating abroad and in new places. But now if I did it at home, that's what I do abroad. And I really just try to be of the place. I think that the biggest safety piece is also just to be really honest and upfront from the beginning. Because I think there is sometimes this just assumed, oh, you're just traveling through, you're just looking for sex, you're just looking for hookup, and just setting boundaries from the beginning. And I think that's probably one of the biggest safety measures, because you're letting whoever you're meeting know kind of what to expect, where you're standing. And I'm always open. A date can go in any direction at any time. And I'm always just very clear. Also, I'm dating with the intention of having a nice time, as whether that means we're going to be friends or we just have like a nice hour together, or it ends up being an all night thing. But setting that boundary and letting whoever you're meeting know at first, I think also whatever their response to that is kind of lets you know where you're going and what their mindset is.
I think, all of these things that you're saying are really, they apply to relationships and dating in any scenario. It's just when we get that clouded dating for the end game, we kind of don't filter in the same way. So I love that dating abroad has given you really, you're just speaking truth and being very clear about what you want or what your expectations are. And I can imagine that's helping any relationship or friendship develop on a deeper level than it would if you were just like, oh yeah, whatever, I'm all good.
And I think too often women also just kind of let men take the lead in things. And I think this has also made me more emboldened in saying, this is where I stand. This is kind of who I am, and not just letting someone kind of lead, whether it's the discussion, the date, the time, except like all of those things, which I think puts us at a bit more of an equal playing field to start. And especially when you're somewhere new, if you're dating a local person or even a traveler that's been there longer, they kind of innately have an advantage because they know the place, they know the area. So having that really open and honest dialogue from the beginning, I feel helps to even things out a bit. So it's not just I'm letting you lead me through this new place, which can be really fun, but also saying, this is my intention of letting you do that, and being clear on those boundaries from the beginning.
I love that. And you're taking responsibility for yourself in the date. And I think that a lot of women can learn from that. And so, you've talked about being more open and, dating outside of what your sort of preferences might have been if you were in, your New York City dating life. And so, what has surprised you about dating in this way? And what kind of have you taken away from this?
I think the thing that has surprised me the most is how open and comfortable I can be. I think that I expected to be more surprised by a kind of opening parameters, or whatever you want to call them, standards, parameters. We all have kind of our niche or our bubble when it comes to dating. Like, I never thought I would be dating someone, going on a date with someone 10 years younger than me. And the first time that I did was 3 years ago, and we're still very, very good friends. It was not a romantic match at all. And that was decided very quickly upon our meeting. But we are still very, very good friends. We speak weekly. I would love to find him a wife, because I think he's a really great guy. I'm just not her. And I think that me finding myself open to that and saying, 10 minutes into our date, realizing this was not a connection and not immediately shutting down and saying, well, we could actually go on a tour tomorrow, or we could hang out as friends. And we're both kind of, again, in the same place at the same time. We both are traveling solo. This is a great opportunity to just meet someone. It doesn't have to be with the intention of being a romantic or even like a hookup. Like, it can just be friendly, and we could have fun. And we did. We had a great few days together before he moved on, and, a relationship that's lasted 3 years. And that's longer than a lot of my romantic relationships have lasted. So I think just finding myself being more vulnerable and open to different experiences has been very surprising. And some of those have, turned into romantic or great hookups, to be frank, that I might have been closed off to previously. So I think it's a great question, because I do think it's been more surprising for myself than being surprised by anyone else, and just allowing different people to come into my life in whatever way that they're meant to.
Hearing you speak, it sounds like you're finding like a great sense of empowerment through this process. And that's brilliant, because a lot of the times, when it comes to dating, especially as women, we can hand over all of the power to anyone else on the other side. And so I love that you're finding more strength in who you are, and being unafraid to sort of declare that. So I think that's absolutely brilliant.
And I think, just to elaborate on what you just said, when we hand over that power, I think sometimes we hand over that power to let things become negative. And I think that something that I've learned too is, if we don't click for whatever reason, it's just because we're not meant to. And I think previously I would have said, well, I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not funny enough, or I would have internalized that in so many ways. Whereas I think that this kind of empowerment also comes from just really realizing that not every date is meant to be more than that. And it's not, every experience is just the experience. And it has nothing to do with my shortcoming or any shortcoming on either of our end if that doesn't work. And I think that's probably been one of the most empowering things. I have gone on dates with just really beautiful humans that I have just been in awe of, who I wasn't for them, and that's okay. And I think really realizing that, and not shutting down and just kind of giving up on dating because someone didn't like me. And that doesn't mean they didn't like me. It just means I wasn't for them. And I think that's also been one of the most empowering things about just different style of dating, and meeting so many different people, and allowing myself to meet so many different people.
I love that. It's like, don't take it personally. I think if we all can like really, really grasp that, then life becomes so much easier.
And it makes things just so much more fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, it's like, hey, who's the cool person I can meet today? And so you have this wonderful website, International Tinderella, which is the absolute best. And so tell people what this is.
Sure. So it's really just a recap of this kind of journey and process of kind of reclaiming dating while abroad. And it's just, I think it's pretty raw and vulnerable and kind of how I got here and what things look like, and just really claiming my style of dating, what I want to get out of dating. There's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be someone who's saying you are using men, or you are, just trying to get a free meal, or whatever it may be. There will always be those people. And I really think it's taking that back and saying, this is simply what I want and this is working. And also just sharing the importance of that vulnerability and honesty, one with ourselves and with the people that we're dating. It also, frankly, it was never meant to kind of turn into a thing. It was very much kind of pushed by a really good friend of mine. And she was like, you need to talk about this, and you need to let especially other women know it's okay to date just to date. It's okay to not be looking for a partner. It's okay to be open to experiences that are non-traditional and outside of norm that's been created. And that there is something in that. And there's something kind of empowering and emboldening and just really claiming who you are and what you want. And that there are other people who want that. I shared a story in a Facebook group of women travelers, and the feedback was just so unexpected and so positive and empowering. And so many other women said, I wish I could get there. I wish I had the balls to do it. And we need to talk about this more. And then it just kind of came to be of kind of just publishing stories and just kind of going back in time and reliving these adventures, and just love sharing those experiences and really just saying, this is possible and dating can be fun, and we can reclaim this thing that I think has just gotten so challenging and stressful and frustrating. And I think it's just something that people need to, especially women, need to just claim however it is they want to approach dating is the right way. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. And I think that's just really what I'm trying to put out there and to share.
Declaring this is like what I'm doing. This is who I am. And I have to say, your titles of the blog post are brilliant. There was the Bumble Virgin, the Bisexual Canadian Gold Miner. They're just really brilliant captures of these moments. And so do these men know that you've written blog posts about them, or do you tell them, or you ask them, or are they aware?
The majority are. I try to be respectful, and especially if something's going to be a bit taboo, I guess, in a way. And I always try to protect identity if there hasn't been permission to share. I don't ever use anybody's name, and photos only if allowed. And I think something that has come recently, which I think is a plus and a minus, is I will have a date lined up with someone or talk to someone, and they will discover that I have a blog based on it because there's a link in my Instagram. And frankly, my Instagram is in my Tinder because sometimes that's a quicker way to connect, etc. And they will do their due diligence and find this blog. And I have actually had two gentlemen that no longer wanted to date me. And I said, that's fine. I completely respect that. And then others have kind of gone the opposite way. And I think assumed that they were going to make the blog. And,
I love the ego.
oh, exactly.
They're like, oh, I'm dating her. She's going to write about me.
Exactly. Frankly, I met someone and dated him in Lisbon, and he said, I'm going to be the last bachelor. And I was just like, oh, you have such dreams. And I think it's been a little double-edged sword, but I don't think things more fun and interesting. And I never will write about someone who asked not to be. I don't think that's fair. I think that's I wouldn't want the same. But yeah, I think there's different responses, different interests. I've also had men read my blog and then reach out to me because they want to be in it, I guess. So again, it became this little Facebook story that then just turned into much bigger things. And I'm glad it's reaching people. I'm glad that there are men that are reading it, because I think that it does give insight to both sides and I think there's different things that can be learned from it. And I think also being 40, I'm not 20. I'm not a 20-year-old backpacker who's a size 0 that's running around in my bikini, which I love the 20-year-olds who are backpacking in their bikinis and have all of the fun, just be safe. But I think there's also something to be I'll be 41 in 2 weeks. And, I think there's something to that and saying you don't need to be this like young, carefree person to enjoy this lifestyle and to have fun and to be attractive and to be attracted to people and to, pursue fun relationships or instances or experiences. There is really no limit. That I think is my ultimate goal, is to reach those other ladies who are, thinking I've become invisible, or, my kind of time has passed. It hasn't. If you don't want it to, it hasn't. And it's really just empowering yourself and getting out there and doing the things and being vulnerable and knowing if it doesn't work out, it's not you. It just wasn't meant to be.
I love it. I love the whole facet of like you writing about it and men wanting to really be in. It's very like Carrie Bradshaw, it's like, was that about me? Is that me? We have time for one more question. And so how long do you give yourself? Like if say you're headed to Lisbon and you want to date, like how far in advance do you start looking on the apps to try and align? Because that's always a thing. You're like, I'm going to be here for a weekend, or I would love to date as soon as I get there. Like, how do you work your time frame?
I don't.
It sounds very strategic. I'm like, what's your strategy?
Right. There isn't one. I have never done like the passport mode or the like planning ahead. And I think that's really what has the appeal to me. It's going to sound terrible, but it's true. Like, I don't care what your favorite color is. Like, there's certain things that, quite frankly, I don't care about and I don't need to. So, that is also just the most refreshing part for me of this kind of rapid fire timeline dating is like, if I think that you're attractive or something about you clicks, like I think you're funny, you have made me laugh, or you have a good vibe, or we both want to go to the same like site, that's enough. And like, let's meet tonight. I'm only here for however long. I do have the privilege of typically being somewhere for a bit longer than your average kind of traveler. But there is something really nice about saying these three things are enough. Let's meet tonight, or let's meet tomorrow and go, to a castle or whatever it may be. So you get rid of all of that kind of small talk and that like mundane, repetitive stuff, frankly, is irrelevant.
And it makes dating such a pain in the butt online. Like that's the part. It's like, why spend all this time only to hang out with them for 5 minutes and know instantly, oh yeah, no, this isn't not a go.
Exactly. So let's cut that out and let's have that conversation face to face. And yeah, I think that has also been one of the best parts about this is there's not that lead up. Also, we're not talking for a week and then you disappear. And I wonder what happens. We're eliminating so many of the stressors of dating, which has just been so nice. And I know others, like if you're looking for something more serious or you want to vet somebody a little bit longer, there's passport mode, there's all of these ways to do that. And by all means, if that makes you more comfortable in meeting someone and getting to know someone a bit better prior to meeting them, that's a great way to do so.
Wait, what's passport mode?
So it is, let's say I am here now, but I'm going to Cancun next week. You can set your location to where you're going prior to going. So you can connect with people who either live there or will also be there at that time and kind of start seeing what your options are or connect to someone and then maybe plan to meet when you get there, etc. Yeah, I like cut the bullshit. Like, let's get right to it. Let's meet and we'll see where things go. Because you could also spend 5 days talking to somebody, like you said, and in the first 5 minutes, you're like, oh, this isn't a vibe. Because we can be whoever we want online and through an app. But if that's not who you are in person, it's for nothing.
Yeah, I love it. The reality is, if you're online to date, the reason you're online is to actually have the date, to meet people. So all the fluff and the BS and the protocol and the crap that goes into it, it's like just put a couple of nice realistic photos up. Let's be honest. Yes, please. And then let's just say hello face to face and decide that, we're going to save a lot of time.
Exactly.
I'm down. I love that, you have this blog. I love that, you are saying, I'm 40 years old. I am a woman that I date. I have hookup. I have relationships. I don't have relationships. I get to choose. And I love that you are the face and the voice of that. And you do it with such humor and such entertainment. Like it's absolutely brilliant. So everyone should definitely check out your blog because it's really great, and follow you on Instagram because you're one of my favorite accounts.
Thank you.
So before we move into the lightning round, let's talk about one thing that I'm sure people consider, and that is language barriers. So do you only date English speakers? Like, how does that work out for you? What's the language barrier situation?
So I have been very fortunate that so many people around the world have been able to meet me where I'm at because English is my only fluent language. In Spanish, I can pretty much order off of a menu, ask for directions, and the toilet. So that's not going to get me too far on a date. So luckily, the majority of the world that I have been to does speak English. I think also by meeting through apps, you have to kind of type things out at first. And so there have been some instances where folks do speak English, but don't text or write as well. So I will also use a translate app if we have established that that makes it easier. I have only had one date that was truly two different languages, and that was in Turkey. And he let me know when he was on the way to the date that he had something to tell me. And I was like, oh God, is your wife coming? Or like, are you short? And he was like, I've been using a translator app the whole time that we were talking. My English is not very good. And by my English is not very good, his English was about as good as my Turkish. So we had an entire date via Google Translate. And he was a personal trainer. And I think his two most used words in English were let's go. So we went on this like crazy long date. It was so much fun. And we just kept texting back and forth. The problem was, again, I'm 6'1". I walk very quickly. I have very long legs, but he was like 6'7". And the fastest, I felt like I was chasing this man the entire time. And because I couldn't communicate with him, I couldn't like shout to him, like, you're losing me. And we're going through all of these places in Turkey because he took me on the best date. We went all over the place, but we're going through public transit. We're going to these like crowded areas. And I'm just like, if I lose him, I'm doomed because I don't really know where I am. I can't like shout to him, just like wait up. And so he would just go. And I was like, oh God, we're running. But it was such a great date and it was so much fun. And then we'd be on the subway, the metro, and we wouldn't have service. So it was just silent. It was actually, I think, just enhanced. It made the date so much more fun because we would just like laugh, like, or sit in silence if we didn't have service. But luckily, other than that, I've been very fortunate to just there may have been a brief language barrier and maybe some miscommunication because sometimes that does happen. I think we all get very comfortable kind of in our slang and like casual language. And I have to remember sometimes that doesn't translate, or if I am fortunate enough that someone speaks English, they may not catch some of my nuances, so I also have to remind myself to meet folks where they're at, or there's always Google Translate and let's go.
I love it. And what a fantastic story, right? It's like, yeah.
It just made it that much more fun.
I can't believe it was 6'7". I mean, you're 6'1", so 6'7" is like, you probably are like, yes, I get to date someone that's taller than me. Like,
ladies, if you're looking for tall men, Turkey is the place.
There we go. The inside scoop right there. Open your Tinder app in Turkey, ladies. Oh, fantastic. Well, with that, let's move into the lightning round. So we have 4 quick questions. The first one is, what is a travel tip or an inside scoop for your current location? So you're in New Jersey. You could pick New York. You could pick your next destination. I understand you're just passing through at the moment.
Well, for New Jersey Transit, this is a terrible tip, but a good tip. If you have the app, if you're in the tunnel leaving Penn Station, pretend you can't open the app to show your ticket and hope the conductor does not come back. Don't activate your ticket right away.
So how to get free transport.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is a very inside scoop. That's fantastic. So question number 2 is, what is a book that has inspired you to design this extraordinary life, or just inspired you in life?
I have always been a big reader, and this is crazy. I don't really read books about people traveling. I am much more kind of a historical fiction reader. So I think just anything with a strong like female lead just really resonates with me. It's so completely off topic and different from my life, but The Nightingale is probably one of the books that has just really inspired me, I think, to be an empowered and I don't know if even brave is the right word because the bravery in that book doesn't even touch, I think, the bravery of my life or anything I will ever experience, but it's just so impactful. And that the two different types of women that were represented in the book were so vastly different, but just so bold and empowered and brave in their own ways. So I think that's just been one of the most empowering and inspirational books I've ever read.
When you said strong female, I was in my mind, I was like, I wonder if she's read Kristen Hanna. She writes so incredibly about women who just power through in the face of adversity. Like it's unbelievable. Yeah. Question number 3 is what is something that you always take with you, you never leave home without? I understand you are nomadic, but what is it, even if you go away for a night, you always take with you?
Ziploc bags. I always have a supply of, I am like the Ziploc bag queen. And they are the most useful for anyone traveling, again, overnight or for years. A Ziploc bag will always come in handy, whether it's the little one. I am like, I should be sponsored by Ziploc because I am obsessed with Ziploc bags. And I think I've had the same Ziploc bags for 4 years.
I think that is one of the first things I saw you post. And I was like, oh my God, no one, but I've never seen anyone else because I too am like, and tell people, girl, bring Ziploc bag. And people think I was crazy. And you said it. And I was like, yes, she is my people.
Yes. And now they have the reusable ones. Like, so I am so deep into zipper bags and I refuse to throw them away. So I think I've literally had the same Ziploc bags for 4 years.
Oh, it's fantastic. They're so useful. So I am so down. Question number 4 is what is on the top of your bucket list for adventures or destinations?
Everywhere. I think that I'm so open to going anywhere at this point. I am heading to Guatemala in 12 days. And I'm so excited to go to Guatemala. It has definitely been on a list of mine for a very long time. I've spent quite a bit of time in Latin America, and it's just somewhere that I've come so close to and just haven't crossed over into. And I am very much looking forward to parasailing for the first time. And that is high on my list. I've been wanting to do that for a very long time too. So definitely checking off some big bucket list items in Guatemala. It's also going to be my first crew backpacking trip where I'm doing all hostels. And yeah, I think it's gonna test a lot of things for me. But I'm really excited and to dive into it. I think it's kind of like I'm dating Guatemala. If it works out, great. If not, then I tried it and it's not for me. And I will go back to kind of my mid budget and not mega budget traveling. But I'm really excited to try something new and try it on and see if it works. And if not, court somewhere else.
I love it. Dating Guatemala. That is fantastic. And so, thank you so much. I have loved this conversation. I knew it was going to be fun. I've been looking forward to it for the last couple of weeks. And so, where can people find you or connect with you online? Because everyone should. You have the best content.
Thank you. For true travel content without the dating, without the spice, queenoftheexitrow.com is my travel blog with just lots of tips and kind of trip recaps and agendas and, all that fun stuff. Queen of the Exit Row is also my Instagram, where you can just find just really raw and authentic travel content. Nothing is truly curated or filtered. It is very much just what this life looks like. And for the international dating spice, you can head over to internationaltinderella.com.
I love it. And so definitely give you a follow. Your stories are the best every day. And so thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your stories and dating around the world, man. I'm down. It's so awesome. So thank you for being the light that we all need to see.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I'm so glad we had this chat.
Me too. And happy travels. That conversation was so fun. And I absolutely love Hillary's outlook on dating and life in general. And here are the key takeaways. Number 1, dating abroad can take the pressure off of dating in general. If you're just passing through a town for a short amount of time, then you don't necessarily have to have the same expectations. You can just date for fun. Number 2, you can find someone anywhere as long as you're open. Number 3, the key to safely dating is to communicate your desires and expectations beforehand. That way, both you and the person you're dating are going into the date with very clear and realistic expectations. Number 4, Not all dates are meant to be the be-all, end-all. Some get to be a fun night with a person that you might not vibe with, or you might have just found a new friend. And number 5, it's okay to date just to date. You don't have to look for a husband or a long-term partner if that's not what you're interested in. Dating for the sake of dating is perfectly fine. And number 6, just because you're not 20 years old and running around the world in your bikini doesn't mean that you can't date. No matter what your age, if you are open to dating around the world, then it is possible. Never let your age or your thoughts about yourself hold you back. The quote that I would like to leave you with today is from Esther Perel. And Esther Perel is one of the biggest thought leaders on modern relationships. And she said, the more we trust, the further we are able to venture. And I loved that quote, especially in relation to this conversation with Hillary. Hillary has been able to really trust herself and who she is as the woman that she is through this dating process. And she is quite literally and metaphorically able to venture. She's more open in her dating. She's more open to the possibilities, and she has become more open within who she is as herself. I love this idea so much. And I know that today we were talking about dating abroad, but I think this is applicable no matter where we're dating. The more that we trust ourselves, the further we are able to go within our relationships, whether that's with your friends or your lovers, or just the person you're out with for the evening. I hope that we all are able to find that comfortability and that self-trust that allows us to explore the world and who we are within it in a peaceful and comfortable and expansive way. If you enjoyed this episode today, then please share it. That little act of kindness means a lot and it helps more than you know. And of course, I absolutely love receiving messages from you on Instagram. So if you are feeling inspired, then send me a DM. You can find me at Design Her Travel. Until next time, my friends. Thank you so much for showing up and listening to this episode. I know that there are so many things in life that you could be doing right now. And so it means a lot to me that you're here. There are so many more episodes coming your way. So if you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to review and follow us on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know someone who might like to hear it, please share. Those little acts of kindness mean a lot and help more than you know. I appreciate your time and getting the opportunity to share this moment. I'd love to hear more from you. I'd love to connect, so reach out on social. You can find me on Instagram at Seafaring Wanderer. That's SeafaringWanderer. And then you can join our Facebook group at Design Her Travel Podcast. I would love to connect, hear more from you. Let me know what you'd like to hear more of, places you'd like to hear about, and things you'd like to know how to do when designing your life. So thank you, everyone, and I'll be back soon.